So now that everything on the rear of the car here is wrapped up for the most part, I'm gonna slowly start moving my way forward on the car. That's going to involve moving forward on the quarter panels themselves. Obviously, if you guys watched the video maybe a month or two ago now, where I was mocking up and getting his quarter panels on for the first time, I went through and showed you guys all the spots where the quarter panels attached. I forget how many places it is, but it's quite a few places that the quarter panel actually attaches to the car or other parts, obviously. So like I said, rear section is mainly done. I'll have to go through and do all these welds on here. That'll be my last step though. It's all clamped, it's not gonna go anywhere. The next step going forward is going to be one, deciding what I want to do about this section here, and then two, making some pieces to make it all happen. From the factory, the quarter panel to the inner door jamb here has this lip, and then this would just have some holes get plug welded to this piece right here. I'm gonna go through, trim this off, make a nice corner on this. It'll have a nice 90, it'll look seamless. I may do some like support and basically make a piece on the back. I'm not totally sure yet what I want to do, but this is all 18 gauge. It's pretty strong. Then again, another support wouldn't hurt anything. So that should be a relatively easy project. The trickier part is once we get down here and take a closer look at this. It's all scraped up right now just from having the door on and off a multitude of times. But if we come down here basically to the rocker panel, you can see that the quarter panel overlays on it just like so. And then if you look at it from this angle right here, the rocker panel kind of dips in for then the quarter panel to go on top of it here. This seam would either be filled with lead or body filler. I'm not totally sure what they did from the factory, but I want to go through and get rid of that. And then since I built these custom rocker panels here, which got rid of the pinch weld, you can see the pinch weld be there. So I got to go through basically trim that up. That'll be the first step. Get the width of the quarter panel right, and then go through, figure out, I'm not totally sure what I'm gonna do, but I'll probably have to cut this back here, or at least just cut it back here, and then have to make a piece to make that all seamless. So I'll walk you guys through it once I get to it. I'm just trying to get my thoughts out there for right now, show you guys what it looks like ahead of time. And we'll try to make something cool happen here and make it look pretty decent in the end. I got all the pieces cut off the quarter panel that need to be cut off. So this part right here was the part that I was showing earlier. It's kind of the lower quarter panel part that goes onto the rocker. Trim that off because once again, that's the pinch weld lip. We're completely eliminating that. And if you look at it from this angle right here, you can kind of see how that'll be seamless. It'll flow into the bottom. I did kind of screw myself here. When I built these rockers, I followed that shape of the bottom side there. I wish I would have just gone flat all the way across like the rest of the rocker, made that flat. So I'm not totally sure what I'm gonna do just yet, but I will get this line on the bottom of the quarter panel to line up with the bottom of the rocker for now. And then when it comes time to figure out stuff for the inside, I'll figure that out. You can kind of see how it's gonna look right there. I am gonna do a side exhaust on this, at least that's the plan. And this car is going to be so low where I am gonna have to notch into the rocker. I originally was planning on doing it kind of mid to rear section on the door. Maybe I'll slide that back to the quarter panel area here, and that will hopefully fix that issue. I can make something work there. So that was piece number one. I still have to go through, make the little patch piece for that. I'll show you guys that once the time comes. Piece number two was this front flange. So this is going to be probably the biggest thing appearance wise. Obviously that went on the front side of this, and I got rid of that with the goal to weld this to the inside door jamb here. I went through and placed these last August now, so a little bit ago. And if you step back, you can kind of see what it's going to look like towards the rear section here, where the gap is absolutely perfect. I got to go through, put the door on, take it off probably a couple times to figure out exactly the shape of this, because obviously this can kind of form to whichever angle you need it to. I'm going to need that to match the door. We'll set the gap temporary for now. The end goal for this car is for every gap, door, hood, fenders, deck lid, to be at 3/16. So that's what you want the proper gap to be at, based upon what I've seen a lot of other people do and what I've been told. We'll get it temporary for now. Once the car is completely done on the chassis, all the weight and everything is in the car, go through and absolutely dial them in, but we'll get them pretty close for now. And now that that is all said there, this leads me to probably the biggest, I don't want to say issue, but decision I have to make right now. As you can see, if we look at it from this side right here, this quarter panel overhangs this rear door jamb here. And once again, that lip would have just gone over that. From the factory, it probably just would have got sandwiched or pushed together, and then those plug welds would have gone on that right there. So it didn't need to be absolutely perfect. Obviously, these reproduction panels are just how the factory panels did it there. So it's got the same thought process behind it. But if you're going to do something like I'm doing, having that gap on the end there, obviously you can't go through and weld it. So I'm gonna go ahead and attempt to hammer this forward a little bit and get it to line up with the edge of the quarter panel, because I need that line to be where it's at. We'll see how close I can get it, but my biggest concern is if I hammer this too much forward to meet this point right here, it's gonna throw an angle on this. Like I said, I want this right here to be a perfect 90. I think that'll look the best. I think it's the proper way to do it. And if I hammer this forward, we could be under that. Basically right here, it'll just dive back in. So I'm not totally sure. Like I said, I'm gonna go through, hammer that. If it ends up not working out, I'll probably just cut that piece off, make a whole new ledge, which I don't really want to do, because that means I got to go through and remake that whole piece. I would prefer to keep this as one piece as is, but we'll see what it ends up being. There's only one way to find out, so I'm going to get to hammer and dialing this piece. We'll see what it ends up being, and then make a decision from there. So I've hammered out a good bit of this flange right here to get it to line up with the edge of the quarter panel, and I think I'm gonna go ahead and cut this off and remake my own. I got this set at a 90 here, and as you can see, there is a pretty good sized gap on that. If we go up, it does get a little bit closer right here, right? But if this were to extend all the way to the back point, it's hard to tell on camera, this part does taper in to that point on there. So even if I were to hammer this whole thing out, it doesn't change where this piece of metal starts, right? The whole thing needs to be moved forward. I don't know the measurement yet, how far forward, but I'm gonna go through, first of all, put the door back on, probably tack this in place, that way I can go through, make a template. We'll leave this in place, you know, cut out the new piece, cut this out, and then swap it then. While I'm doing that, I also want to change this piece right here. Why Chrysler did this from the factory, I honestly don't know. I think it looks a little bit goofy, but you have the door line which comes in, kicks out a little, and then there's this weird just like angle right there. So I'm gonna go through, we'll make this all one nice swoop right there. I'll have to go through obviously and change that on the door itself, but that should just be a little piece on the end right there. It shouldn't be anything too tricky. So go ahead, a couple things I can do to change that, but it's gonna be the game plan going forward on this piece right there. So obviously I got the new side panels here all cut out. This one is going to be for the passenger side. I just wanted to cut them out at the same time, make sure they're identical, do the old hand CNC trick, vice grip them together, make sure they're the same. So I got the template on this one, got that 100% dialed, then went through and laid it on top of the other piece and then just did that. So if they both match, when I go to do that side, I already have that piece all made, should be fairly simple. And as you guys saw, I went through and got this piece tacked in place. I did some tacks without filler first, just to hold it, and then I went back basically between those, and it's about every inch or so. I went through and did tacks with filler. I don't necessarily know, if that's 100% the right way to do it, but it's a way that kind of worked the best for me here. So pretty happy with the way that turned out. I went through and tossed some filler, or some weld through primer, on this spot down here where that other patch will lay over. Got that prepped, so when I make that patch, that'll look pretty good. But spent a lot of time getting this 100% right. So as you can see, that is at a perfect 90 all the way across the board. Pretty happy with that. I got a little bit of warping up top here, and that's just from trying to get this bend perfect. I had it pretty close, but then once I tacked these sections in place, I had to go through from the backside, kind of tap it with this piece of wood here. So I got to go through, just hammer this section a little bit. And then ideally, you'd want to weld this whole thing in one pass for even cooling. I don't think I'm gonna be able to do that. I don't think I'm at that point where I can do one full pass that's, I don't know, 2 feet long, going all the way down. So I'm gonna do the best I can there. It is going to be tricky because obviously you have an inside 90 joint here and then an outside 90 joint. And I gotta be real careful because this lip right here, this is the line that I need for the door gap. So I need that to stay as is. It's gonna be a little bit tricky. I wanna get this as consistent as I can get it as well. That way it's easier to metal finish in the end. So lots to think about. Take my time, go slow, and get it knocked out here. That is a wrap for all the welding and metal finishing on this rear door jamb piece here. Pretty happy with the way it turned out, especially that weld down the center there. That was obviously tricky to weld, number one. One thing I learned for the other side that I'll definitely be doing is welding the bottom section first, because that was a lot trickier. And by the time I got to that, my arms were pretty tired from doing everything else. So I'm gonna start on the bottom first on the other side. Hopefully it'll allow me to get a little bit better welds down there, and then I'll kind of just work my way up from there. Still need to go get some new belts for my little handheld belt sander so I can wrap up bottom area there. But that kind of works out because I still need to go through and make that bottom piece. Everything else, like I said, turned out really good, so I'm happy with it. I gotta see where the seal and the door lines up, but I may end up making a little end cap right there just to cap that off. But from factory, that's how it was. So we'll see. I do think it looks a little bit kind of goofy, just open, but I'll see, like I said, if the seal covers that up or if there's a piece on the door, I'm not totally sure why that section is not there. Other than that, just took a lot of time. Once again, making sure it's on perfect 90 from this surface to this surface, and then this surface to the outside of the quarter panel there. I was extra careful on making sure I leave a nice sharp edge across this. I could have took the DA and just, rounded that corner, but I think it looks better as a sharp edge, and that'll give me a little bit of wiggle room when it comes time to gap this, because if I need to, like I said, make a radius on that, I can. Obviously, the door will be the piece that I'll be using to adjust the gaps. This part is stationary. It is where it is, and that's why it took a lot of time making sure everything was lined up. I probably had the door on 10, 12 times, something along the lines of that, to make sure everything gets lined up, because you have the top body line, and then you got the middle one in the quarter, and then the one all the way at the bottom. So you got 3 body lines here. You also have this shape on the side, this shape on the top. You want this line as well, so that'll be 4 body lines right there to line up. So there's a lot going on. I mentioned it at the beginning of the video, but the quarter panel would originally come out to about here or so, and I just cut that off. That way this was a nice seam right there. You can see the radius on the rocker right here, so I'll go through, make a full patch that'll go over the top and weld on like that. This will be an overlapping joint because this is the rocker panel. This is a structural piece. I do not want to cut into that to make a quarter panel skin, flush with that. So that's why I got some weld through primer on that. Probably toss another coat on before I fully weld this piece on. And I picked up this mini English wheel the other day. It's fairly affordable, and obviously with limited space and whatnot, I figured this was the best route to go. So to make this piece, down at the bottom, you can see that radius is a pretty intricate piece. So I figured this was the best way to go. Been making some test pieces with it. This piece here actually started out as a test piece on that tail light panel I made. It was that back corner, so it was basically a shape of a giant C. Went through, flattened it out. It's not 100% perfect. I'll probably mess with it a little more, but like I said, just spend a couple hours messing around, trying the different dies, seeing, what does what, figuring out how to get the result I need to. And it's been interesting. It's been probably a year and a half since I used an actual English wheel, and I didn't do anything really crazy on it, just a couple little projects. So getting the hang of it, but it's just like anything, right? You can watch as many videos as you want, read as many books as you want, take people's opinions and thoughts into consideration, but the only way you're truly going to learn, the best way to learn, in my opinion, is going through and physically doing it. So getting a semi-affordable tool, if you want to learn how to shape metal, you can pick one of those up and just get some scrap metal and practice. Nobody starts out perfect. Obviously, this is not a flat piece, and I probably have an hour into this. So long ways to go, but practice makes perfect, or something like that. So we'll keep messing with that, and then I'm gonna go ahead and get started on that bottom piece and try to get that welded in by the end of the weekend here. So we got some good news and some bad news to end off this video here. I'll start off with the bad news and then end off everything with the good news. Bad news is I went through, made a little piece for the bottom of the rocker to the quarter panel transition, had it all English wheeled, had it all welded on, and it is no longer on the car. Completely cut it off, as you can see down there, and that's because I got a much larger issue that I was expecting. It's starting out in that small little area where I had that patch, but unfortunately this requires a pretty large fix. So I've been thinking about it over the past day and a half now. I think I got a pretty solid plan in place to go through and fix that. We're gonna work on that in the next video. The good news though is this whole top half, so from here up, is good. That turned out really good. I can directly transfer this measurement wise to the other side. So the quarter panel is officially mounted. The bad news is I'm gonna have to go through, redo a decent amount of work that I did about a year ago now. Like I said, that'll all be in the next video. I'm pretty sure I got a good plan to fix this all. It's gonna be a decent amount of work, but if I can make it happen, it will make a whole boatload of things going forward much easier and much better, especially when it comes time for the chassis and to gap these doors and to get the doors on, to build hinges for that. I mean, it's just gonna make everything so much better. I have a much better peace of mind in here. So I'm gonna get cranking away on that. That's gonna wrap it up for this video. So appreciate everyone watching, and stay tuned for the next one because I got quite the project ahead of me. But like I said, I think it'll all be worth it once it's all said and done.